let's talk about tasers. Now, I'm tired of it. I'm tired of seeing countless video after video where we have an officer encounter a suspect. Officer is trying to subdue him in some way, trying to calm him down. And it gets to the point where right before the confrontation ensues, pulls out the taser, and I'm wondering, why isn't this guy going down? And I'm sure the officer is as well. So I decided to do a little bit of research, try to find out what is exactly going on. Why don't tasers seem as effective as they used to? And I found this. Report from this APM Reports, I believe. I don't know who this organization is, but I guess they do documentaries and they do journalism. They investigate things. I want to find out why tasers don't work. An episode from Curtis Gilbert. Like I said, this is a report from APM Reports. And what they did was they investigated interactions with the police and how frequently they used tasers and their results. And what they found is, though the taser manufacturers claim that their devices can be up to 95 to 99% effective, their results that this report finds are actually significantly less, up to 40% of the time. In 258 cases over 3 years, tasers have failed to subdue someone who was then shot and killed by police. Again, that's the narrative. They pull out the taser, it doesn't work. What do? Well, we know what happens next. So we're going to learn something today. The taser employs electricity to lock a person, their muscles up for a few seconds, long enough for an officer to disarm and handcuff a suspect, usually without inflicting severe injury. The weapons are produced by Axon Enterprise, which has a monopoly on the American market. Problem number one, the company has long promoted tasers to police as reliable and effectiveness as an effective to guns. In fact, Axon's slogan is "Protect Life." Axon has claimed that tasers are between 80 and 97% effective at subduing a suspect in the field, but a year-long investigation by APM Reports shows that police rate tasers as considerably less effective. Data from some of the largest police departments in the nation reveal that officers rate their tasers as less effective as little as 55% of the time. That is not good. And this is from police, which is probably most important. A lot of times, it's me or some news guy talking about it. But really, let's get the information from the police officers. What are they saying? Because their data is what matters, and ultimately it's what seems to be costing people their lives. APM Reports found that more than 250 fatal police shootings nationwide between 2015 and 17 that occurred after a taser failed to incapacitate a suspect. In 106 of them, the suspect became more violent after receiving an electrical shock, according to a review of case files and media reports suggesting that a taser may have made a bad situation worse. Interesting. APM Reports also found evidence that 2 of Axon's newer models may be less effective than older ones. Data from 3 of the nation's largest cities, New York, LA, and Houston, show that officers rate newer models less effective than older ones. All told, the company has sold more than 600,000 of the taser models that police rate less effective than the older ones. Most of them likely remain in circulation. In 2015, the LAPD, their own data showed that tasers were less effective than the previous model, subduing suspects little more than half the time. Yet the LAPD officials neglected to investigate the problem, and then they bought thousands more tasers. For more than 3 years, the LAPD has required virtually all of its patrol officers to carry those new tasers and use them in volatile, life-threatening encounters, even though its officers were consistently giving them lower marks for effectiveness. So, hey, listen, some people want to defund the police. I'm not quite with that. I think there are definitely resources that need to be put into police, and perhaps maybe we should defund this particular organization and stop giving them, or this corporation, and stop giving them our money to put officers in dangerous positions. Last year, the company, now called Axon, reported $420 million in sales, up 22%. The company took in $253 million of that from tasers. We talked previously about whether or not you support police reform and how that affects your community, how these lawsuits are being handled because of things like qualified immunity. So whether or not you choose to participate in reforming the criminal justice system, or whether or not you support defunding the police, whatever, that doesn't really matter. The money is coming from you as a taxpayer. You're paying money for your local, fire, police, all that stuff. Yeah. that money is being put to settle these lawsuits when these citizens are shot, killed, and then they sue. So police reform is definitely an issue, among other things that we have going on currently. But yeah, I mean, given that this company seems to have a monopoly, this is definitely interesting information. Axon has made varying claims over the years about how reliable their tasers are incapacitating suspects. In earnings calls and marketing materials, the company officials often assert that tasers are effective 86, 94, and 90% of the time in the field. The company has even claimed success rates of 99 or 100% in testing and demonstrations. Axon no longer makes such precise assertions of effectiveness in its marketing materials. Still, as recently as 2015, Smith, in an interview with the weapons, subdued people 80 to 95% of the time in the field. For instance, LAPD counted every trigger pull. So this is one of the big issues with this, is that every police department tracks these things differently. So to his credit, or whoever's behind Joe Biden, one of the things that he wants to put in is like some type of strict standard for how policing would be done. And I'm guessing this would be one of those things, even though he refuses to be specific. How are taser pulls going to be tracked across the nation is definitely going to determine how effective tasers are. And again, this is obviously information that you need in order to figure out how you're going to reform the police department, or where you're going to invest your money in weapons. Other departments such as the NYPD only track each officer's taser, not trigger pulls. So consider an incident where an officer shocks a suspect with a taser 3 times, and the first 2 attempts fail to subdue the suspect, but the third one does. In LA, the effectiveness rate would be 33%, 3 trigger pulls, 1 incapacitation. In New York, the effectiveness rate would be 100%, 1 taser, 1 incapacitation. So that is that's a big difference. I agree that policing is a local thing, but it doesn't mean you can't maintain a database just for informational purposes. So we can say, all right, well, you guys can track however you want to do things on a local level, but for the sake of policy nationwide or government spending and things like that, they wouldn't want to track some numbers. They don't necessarily have to adhere to the exact same standards, but at least those numbers could be tracked, which I think would be beneficial, at least for having the larger conversation. Obviously, you're limited to what you can do at a federal level, but I don't think there's anything wrong with tracking numbers. Yeah, so I mean, most of these police departments are around, let's say, 75% average. You got Atlanta at 67, Dallas 68, Denver 73, LA 57, New York 77, Seattle 60%. So either way, you're taking a situation that is already dicey. You pull out an ineffective taser, the guy gets more upset. Who knows where it's going from there? It'll save you a bunch of money. Like, here, let me put your capitalist hat on. This is going to save you money from lawsuits. All right, that's all you need to worry about. In a statement to APM Reports, Axon said the data from the police departments doesn't accurately reflect taser effectiveness because it may not include instances when a suspect was subdued after an officer merely displayed or threatened to fire a taser. And you know what? I'll give them that. That's a fantastic point. I 100% agree with that. But I bet they do the same thing when they see the gun. What's happening with these tasers? Well, a couple of things happen. First thing is that they scaled back the amount of the voltage that was going into the suspect, ironically, due to lawsuits, right? Isn't that crazy? See, when the pressure got on them because of lawsuits, they decided, oh, we don't want to suffer any financial loss. We're going to have to roll that back and put the officers at risk because they got qualified immunity, and then the city will have to take that financial burden. So they're passing their financial burden off on you. In 2009, the company changed course. Axon reduced the power in its next generation of tasers, including popular models X2 and X26P. They had roughly half the electrical charge of the X26, which is the earlier model. That's the one that got them popping. The company said in its marketing materials that the X2 and X26P have a significantly improved safety margin. The decision to reduce power came when the company was simultaneously fighting dozens of product quality liability lawsuits alleging tasers caused death or serious injury. Axon also added new warnings to its products as part of the more cautious risk management strategy. You see, remember we talked about Breonna Taylor and how perhaps The financial victory might be the victory that you don't expect or you don't want, but it might actually move the needle in regards to getting meaningful police reform. It's because of the financial implications. And when those burdens are shifted to whomever, all of a sudden they're motivated to act. The lawsuits peaked in 2011 when the company was fighting 55 of them after releasing the X2 in 2011 and the X26P in 2013. Axon's legal exposure has steadily declined. As of the spring, the company is facing just 8 active product liability lawsuits. See? Think of all the money they save by putting officers at risk.